Let's bring in here Larry Lopez, partner of Perth-based Australian Venture Consultants and one of the most experienced venture capital practitioners in the country. But it's his 17 years as a senior executive at the Silicon Valley Bank, including as managing director, that caught our eye. He left SVB to come to Australia in 2006, and Larry Lopez joins me from Perth. Larry, many thanks for your time. Were you surprised at the demise of your old shop?
I was absolutely shocked. It happened so fast, which I guess is expected when you get a run on the bank. Every banker's at some point in their life has had that nightmare that you have an unpredicted run on the bank, and usually you wake up and say, "Oh, I'm glad it was a nightmare." Saturday morning, I woke up and the bank had been seized. So it was a hard lesson.
So can you tell me the history of the Silicon Valley Bank, why it's there in the first place, who it was servicing, and what sort of growth it went through, especially during your time and beyond?
Well, the bank was originally a community bank that was making a lot of loans like any small bank. And because we were based in Silicon Valley, we started to work with the venture capitalists and their customers. Typically, the bank was always very deposit rich. We always had really rich net interest margins and very low loan to deposit ratios. Most tech companies weren't borrowing. So as a result, we were usually very cashed up, and we're always looking for ways to put that money to work besides just loans. In the past, we never. Yep.
I was going to say, so why is it then that so many Australian companies, Australian technology companies, came out yesterday and said they had money on deposit with SVB? What was the attraction for Australian companies to leave money on deposit there?
Well, I think two things. One is that most, particularly for foreign companies, it's hard to open a bank account. And I think, and I'll take some credit for this, Silicon Valley Bank always paid a lot of attention to this market. We thought the venture capitalists here were very clever, and we thought there were a lot of great companies. We're always looking for the next Canva. And I think Silicon Valley Bank welcomed Australian companies when they arrived in the Valley or elsewhere.
It's suggested that one of the real problems was when interest rates were very low, that SVB went and bought a lot of long-dated bonds. The problem is, of course, as interest rates rose, the value of those bonds fell, but also investors could walk in and demand their money back, which is effectively what's happened with this run.
It's absolutely true. I think, let's be clear, the bank, I think they believe they were doing the right thing. They were buying U.S. Treasury bonds. And, in their mind, I think they were putting money back into the economy, and that obviously U.S. Treasury bonds are considered the safest investment you can make. Where they got things wrong was they got themselves caught in they didn't match their deposits with their investments. One of the, I won't go into too much detail, but a blogger basically starts telling people that their deposits were at threat, and it costs a run of the bank. Not for those of us that grew up watching Walt Disney movies, not unlike what you might have seen in Mary Poppins or It's a Wonderful Life. But literally, they had a run on the bank. The depositors wanted to withdraw money, and banks never would be able to return all their deposits in one day. And a run on the bank is a run on the bank.
So the FDIC had a formula to insure deposits of up to $250,000. The government now has walked in and said it will now ensure all deposits are paid out. Is this a surprise, and were you surprised at the speed with which the government in the US did this?
On the contrary, I was very disappointed that because the run on the bank really started, I guess, on Wednesday, and it was really clear to me that the bank had adequate balance sheet coverage. Yes, they were definitely caught in with a lot of long-term bonds, and which really put them in a tough position. But the balance sheet was actually quite strong, And so there was never doubt in my mind that they actually the deposits were covered and well invested. The issue was they weren't liquid. And so if all the depositors need their money on one day, it was going to get really ugly, as it did. And of course, not all depositors took their money out. Some of them might have wanted to. But, I think that I'm not questioning the actions of the Federal Reserve, but I think they probably should have stepped up on Thursday and stopped the run.
And Larry, can I jump in here and just ask one very quick response? We're running out of time. And that is the need for venture capital for banks like SVB. Are they as necessary now as ever before?
Well, I think what SVB was, a lot of these startup companies, particularly in the early days, they had no place to bank. No, banks didn't want the business. They viewed it as troublesome. And at Silicon Valley Bank, that was all we did. There are a couple copycat banks. Interestingly, they're being hammered in the markets today. Yes. And I think they all have strong balance sheets. So yes. Hopefully someone will step up and fill that void, because Silicon Valley Bank was a really important part of the community.